Now, can poverty ever be wiped out, and can inequality really end? That's the most frequently asked question following the recently adopted development goals at the United Nations headquarters. In Kenya, while the middle class is growing, the gap between the rich and the poor continues to widen, with those living just above 100 shillings a day forming about 43% of the population.
That's right. So from New York, our special correspondent Alex Chamwada takes a look at the grim picture of global poverty and what it'll take to eradicate it.
As world leaders gathered at the United Nations headquarters to adopt sustainable ways of fighting poverty, on the streets of New York City, there couldn't have been better images to drive the reality home. That poverty is real even in the most economically advanced nations. Under the skyscrapers, you find the homeless, beggars, some finding platforms of the underground trains the only place to call home, with rats running around for the same leftovers the poor would be looking for. And it is eradication of all forms of poverty everywhere that forms the most important target among the 17 goals the leaders met to adopt, with Kenya's delegation being led by President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Within countries, rural poverty remains unacceptably high, while urban poverty is extensive and underreported by traditional indicators.
One is extremely poor if one lives on only $1.25 or just about 125 Kenya shillings per day, going by World Bank definition, or what is known as below the poverty line indicator. Now, in the US, 15% of its population, or about 47 million people, equal to Kenya's population, live below poverty line. In Sweden, 14%, while in Kenya, those below the poverty line form 43% as compared to Nigeria's 46% and Botswana's 19%. 15 years ago, about a half of Kenyans lived below the national poverty line. By the year 2009, the figure had reduced to 45.5%. While unemployment in the US stands at 6.2%, in Sweden it is 7.9%, in Kenya 40%, while in Botswana an employment rate of 2009 shows 17%. Another indicator of a nation's well-being or quality of life is life expectancy at birth. While an American is likely to live for about 79 years and a Swedish 82 years, a Kenyan should count 62 years, 10 years more than a Nigerian, going by World Bank figures.
But I visited Africa recently, and what I saw gave me hope, and I know should give you hope, because that continent has made impressive gains in health and education. It is one of the fastest growing regions of the world with a rising middle class. And during my travels, Africans, especially young Africans, tell me they don't just want aid, they want trade. They want businesses. They want investment. So I call on the world to join us as we mobilize billions of dollars in new trade and investment and development in Africa.
Closer home, government research depicts a nation pulling apart. In Turkana County, poor people form 87.5% as compared to 21.8% in Nairobi, meaning the share of poor people in Turkana County is 4 times that of Nairobi County. When it comes to education, for example, Loima constituency in Turkana County has the highest proportion of individuals with no education at 93%, as compared with Nairobi's Makadara constituency with the least number of people with no education, that is 8.2%. Those are some of the gaps in the people's well-being within and among nations world leaders hope to bridge, but not easy as long as there is bad governance, conflicts, and misplaced development aid, among other factors.
It must never be forgotten that political and economic activity is only effective when it is understood as a prudential activity, guided by a perennial concept of justice, and consciously conscious of the fact that above and beyond our plans and programs, we are dealing with real men and women who live, struggle and suffer, and are often forced to live in great poverty and deprived of all rights.
All the 17 goals are interdependent, and the world leaders reckon that their success depends on approaching them as shared responsibility under a shared vision. Alex Chamwada for KTN News in New York.